Let's now talk about navigation. What is navigation? Why is navigation important for your website? And how do we provide navigation information on your website? So these are the questions that we will try to answer in this particular lecture. The first obvious question that comes to your mind is, why do we need to have website navigation? As you realize, most websites are no longer single pages. Of course, there do exist those single-page websites like your professor's web page in your computer science department, but most websites usually contain more than one page. As we have seen with our Confusion website that we are building, we already have added a second page called the aboutus.html page. Now, the way we navigated to the aboutus.html page was to explicitly type that into the address bar of our browser. But that is a very inconvenient way of navigating to your website. It would make a lot more sense to provide an intuitive means for the users to navigate your website. This intuitive means could be provided by many different approaches, the navigation bar being one of the most common methods of indicating this information. So we will look at several common ways of providing navigation patterns on typical websites. In this context, you often hear people talking about information architecture. The information architecture deals with the structure of the system with respect to the way the information is organized, labeled, and navigation is provided through the content or through this information. Now, information architecture by itself is a whole big field. It is beyond the scope of this course to cover information architecture. But in case you are interested in organizing and providing information to users through, for example, websites, then I have provided you some links in the additional resources that you can go and read for further knowledge. But in any case, when you're designing a website, it is important to understand the need to design the information navigation structures within your website. And this organization of information within your website also dictates what kind of navigational aids you provide on your website and based upon how the information is organized. Typically, a website would be organized in some kind of a tree-structured or a hierarchical fashion. And that automatically dictates to you how you would design navigational support within your website. The use of a navigation bar, breadcrumbs, and other means of navigation are very, very essential for enabling users to be able to see various parts of your website. When you visit most websites, you would often look for the navigation bar. This is some kind of a bar that is typically attached at the top of the website, or sometimes at the bottom of the website, or sometimes on the side, that provides you with sufficient pointers towards the kind of information that you can access on this site. So your navigation bar will typically contain links to various pages that form part of your website. So a typical navigation bar, how do you go about designing this? When you design a typical navigation bar, you should obviously keep in mind some do's and don'ts about how you design navigation bars. First is that you use user-friendly and simple terms within your navigation bar to indicate the various links that the users can follow within your website to reach information. You should provide a standardized navigation so that wherever the user is within your website hierarchy, they always know how to go back to the home page, how to go to the next, previous, or up and down the hierarchy of some sort. So indicating the location of the user within the hierarchy of your website is very, very useful to provide a user-friendly way of navigating your websites. Also, there are some standard conventions that people follow when these navigation bars are designed. Typically, when you have the logo of your website or your company included in your navigation bar, a click on these logos or a home button should take you back to the topmost level of the hierarchy or the home page of your website, typically the index.html page. Some of the don'ts that you should keep in mind is that you should not have too many choices in your navigation bar. How many is too many? If you find that navigating using your navigation bar is too cumbersome, then that means that there are too many options on your navigation bar. Provide a reasonable set of choices within your navigation bar so that you can indicate the directions that the user can follow in navigating through your website. And when you use these navigation elements in your navigation bar, don't use generic labels. Use meaningful labels. For example, if you put a label named product in your navigation bar, people may be confused about what you mean by product. Or say if you put a service in your navigation bar, they may be confused. What kind of service are you providing? It may be more meaningful to give a more descriptive term in your headers in your navigation bar. Yet another means of providing navigation for users is to provide what is called as breadcrumbs. These are typically provided somewhere in the web page, typically towards the top edge of the web page, closer to the heading of the web page. The breadcrumbs sort of indicate some kind of a navigational hierarchy within which you're currently in your website. So this provides a secondary navigation option for your website. So this could be placed somewhere below the primary navigation. It may indicate the hierarchy of pages through which you have gone, and the current location may be highlighted specifically in the breadcrumb there. So various ways that people can use breadcrumbs include providing a path-based navigation. Say, for example, if you have a user going through a set of steps in order to complete a task on your website, say, for example, reserving an airline ticket, then you could use a breadcrumb approach for indicating to them what step the user is currently on in the sequence of steps. Similarly, if you are providing a location-based navigation for hierarchical approach within your website. So what level of hierarchy you are in and what is the upward path towards the root of your hierarchy. So that could be indicated by your breadcrumbs. Your breadcrumb could also be attribute-based, meaning that you provide a set of choices indicated in your breadcrumb for the user at the current point of time. A typical front-end UI framework provides many other ways of providing navigation on your web pages. These include tabs, pills, pagination, drop-downs, accordions, tags, and scroll spray and affix. We will look at some of these in a bit more detail as we go through the various lessons in the modules that follow this particular lesson.